Whenever we hear the name Lucifer mentioned, thoughts of evil and dark despair pop up in our minds. We know that this being is a force to be reckoned with. But how scary is he really? How was he before sin entered the earth? Well, friends, today you will learn these facts and many more. Be sure to subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and hit that bell icon to be notified about every new upload. But without further ado, let's go ahead and begin with our discussion. Fact number one is Satan was actually God's anointed cherub. Ezekiel 28:14 tells us, "Thou art anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee so. Thou wast upon the holy mountain of God. Thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire." You see, Satan was actually God's right-hand man in heaven. He sat right next to the throne of God, being one of his top men. For those of you that don't know, the word cherub is sometimes used interchangeably with the word angel, and in some cases they mean the same thing. And understanding this, he was able to see the glory and power that God contained. He's seen firsthand just how majestic it was to be around the Creator. And just like everything God possesses and creates, Lucifer himself was also a perfect and beautiful creation, which leads us to our next fact. Fact number two is, he was the perfection of wisdom and beauty. Ezekiel 28:12-14 explains for us that Satan was full of wisdom and perfect beauty. He was covered in precious stones, and he was given the talent of an incredible musician. He was able to sing in the most beautiful manner, singing in multiple keys at one time. Many today are fooled by the cartoons that Satan is some horned gargoyle-looking creature, but the Bible declares for us that he was indeed a beautiful masterpiece, because nothing God creates is ugly or flawed in appearance. But with Lucifer possessing such glamour characteristics, he began to soon covet the throne of God, which led to his falling away, and points us to fact number three. Satan was cast out of heaven. Ezekiel 28:17 says, "Thine heart was lifted up because of thy beauty. Thou hast corrupted thy wisdom by reason of thy brightness. I will cast thee to the ground. I will lay thee before the kings, that they may behold thee." Before Satan was cast out of heaven, he went around to the other angels in heaven, spreading about malicious rumors of God, saying he's a all-power possessed creator, and he needs to be dethroned so that Satan could take his place. Because of his recognition of being the anointed cherub that he was, many believed him, which also led to not just Lucifer being casted out, but 1/3 of God's army of angels being casted out as well, which led to the war in heaven. Revelation 12:9 says, "And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him." Now, to understand this, there was 1/3, we must read Revelation 12:4, where it says, "And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which is ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born." In this verse, the tail represents lies and deceit, and the stars represents the angels. So this is how we know just how many angels were cast out. And I'm sure some of you were wondering, well, why didn't God just zap Lucifer with a lightning bolt? Well, friends, it's simple. Because we have free will, and God does not force love on his creation. And we must also remember that Satan was spreading about rumors of God, so it would only make the lies that he was saying seem more believable if God was to eradicate him from existence. But let's move on to fact number four. Satan rules the nations of this earth. I know, it's hard to believe this, but it actually is true. The author of 1 John states that the whole world is under the control of the evil one, and other passages of the New Testament specifically point to the devil's control over the nations of this world. For example, pay attention to Satan's final offer as he tempts Jesus in the wilderness. He says in Matthew 4:8-9, "Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain, and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in their splendor. All this I will give you." There's no indication that Satan was bluffing here. In fact, in John's Gospel of chapter 12, verse 31, Jesus even more calls him the prince of this world. So you see, now that you just learned this fact, it's pretty easy to now understand why this world is in so much turmoil with shootings and vicious wars. It's simply because Satan is the ruler of this earth. Fact number 5. Satan is on the defensive. From the Garden of Eden until the time of Jesus, Satan continued to accumulate power. I discussed earlier he had grown powerful enough to demand that Jesus worship him in exchange for the nations. Jesus had come to redeem, but after Jesus had resisted his temptations, the game changed. In all 3 synoptic gospels, Jesus does 3 things after his trial in the wilderness. The first one is, he proclaims that the kingdom of God is at hand. His second one, he begins choosing his disciples, and the third, he begins casting out demons. You can already start to see Satan's power becoming undone, but it gets even better, friends. Later, Peter famously confesses that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, in Matthew 16:16, and Jesus responds, "I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and that the gates of Hades will not overcome it." This is a dramatic statement of Jesus and our impending victory of the devil. This should inform our outlook on Satan and spiritual warfare in general. We're not holed up in a bunker waiting for some heavenly air raid to rescue us from an all too powerful foe. My friends, we are already winning. Fact number 6. Satan has spiritual children just like God does. The New Testament often refers to God as our Father and to believers as the children of God. This is obviously a spiritual statement, not a biological one. We're part of God's spiritual family. We live under God's roof, abide by His rules, and enjoy the benefits of being His. However, God isn't the only spiritual father the Bible speaks of. Satan has children too. This comes up multiple times in the New Testament. In the same passage where Jesus calls Satan the father of lies in John 8:44, he tells the Jews who want to kill him, "You belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires." Another example that we find in Matthew 13:36-40, when the disciples asked Jesus to explain the parable of the wheat and tares, Jesus tells them that the good seed represents the sons of his kingdom, while the tares represent the sons of the evil one. Acts 13:10 shows us the newly converted apostle Paul tells a sorcerer, "You are a child of the devil and an enemy of everything that is right. You are all kinds of deceit and trickery." And lastly, in 1 John 3:10, John says that the children of the devil are evident based upon their sinful behavior and their lack of love for their brothers and sisters. So you see, friends, like most things involving Satan, the concept points to Genesis. When God cursed the serpent, he put enmity not only between the devil and the woman, but between both of their descendants. In a way, this prophecy is partially fulfilled the very next chapter of Genesis. In the story of Cain and Abel, one brother was righteous and the other was a murderer. John even uses them as a case study for the difference between the children of God and the children of the devil. He goes so far as to say that Cain was of the evil one. Fact number 7. Satan influenced Judas Iscariot. John tells us that the devil had been prompting Judas Iscariot to betray Jesus before the night of the Last Supper in John 13:2. It says during supper, when the devil had already put into him the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him. Both John and Luke say that the devil entered Judas on the night he betrayed his Lord. Fact number 8. Satan's power of death broke with the death of Christ. It turns out that Jesus' death broke at least some of Satan's deathly power. The author of Hebrews 2:14-15 explains it this way: "Since the children have flesh and blood, he too shared in their humanity, so that by his death he might break the power of him who holds the power of death, that is, the devil, and free those who all their lives were held in slavery by their fear of death." The power of death is slipping, my friends. Paul claims that death will be swallowed up in victory in 1 Corinthians 15:54. And in the book of Revelation, Christ proclaims, "I was dead, and now look, I am alive forever and ever, and I hold the keys of death and Hades." What great news it is that soon, friends, death and hell will be no more, and we will live in perfect harmony with God. Fact number 9. Christian discord powers Satan. While Satan's power is broken, he's not powerless yet. In fact, some New Testament passages tell us that there are certain ways for the devil to gain a tactical advantage against us. The Apostle Paul indicates that anger, unforgiveness, and resentment between Christians give Satan a particular edge. In 2 Corinthians 2:11, Paul encourages the church at Corinth to forgive and reassure any repentant believer who may have caused the rest of the church grief. The apostle urges the church to make such a person feel welcome and loved. Why? Because Paul particularly does not want Satan to outwit them. Paul also tells married couples do not deprive one another sexually. Otherwise, Satan will capitalize on the deprived spouse's lack of self-control. He also even says to the Ephesians not to let the sun go down on their anger, so as not to give the devil a foothold. Friends, Satan can and must be resisted, and we need to be vigilant against giving him any opportunities to get the better of us. Fact number 10. Satan's defeat is certain and imminent. Even though our adversary may gain a tactical advantage here and there, his fate is sealed. John the Revelator sees the ultimate end of Satan, the devil, the serpent of old. Revelation 20:10 says, "And the devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of burning sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet have been thrown. They will be tormented day and night forever and ever." The Bible doesn't tell us exactly when this will happen, but we can trust that the war will be won. Satan will be defeated, and God will ultimately run the universe in partnership with his human image bearers. Well friends, that wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed, please subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and click that bell icon to be notified about every new upload. And friends, we must remember, Satan is God's chief enemy, and therefore our chief enemy. Through Christ's death and resurrection, his power is broken and his fate is sealed. But we still need to be vigilant so as to not give him any advantage in leading us astray. And as always friends, this is Good Purpose, where sharing the everlasting gospel is our purpose.